Go ahead.
I've been known to pull off the road, take a nap in my truck more than once.
I miss car naps.
Mm-hmm.
Just go out there and lay in the car for an hour, and then you wake up and you're like, "Oh, time to go."
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yes, I am ready.
With its own saddler, farrier, wheelwright, and so on. It's a rigorous training dished out who know all there is to know about horses, and it brings results.
We take you behind the scenes now to show just some of the interesting aspects of this training.
Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein, the best podcast to create sounder horses from the ground up. Mike Stein is a registered journeyman farrier with an APF1 accreditation. This week's episode, what does it take to prepare a horse to compete in a 3-day eventing? Also, what are some of the basic shoeing tools a horse owner should have? And also the upcoming rule changes for shoeing racehorses effective July 1st. All this and much, much more will be discussed here on Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. And over to my far right hand side is Mike Stein. How are you?
I'm doing good, Travis. How are you?
Welcome back. How are you? You made it back from where did you go? To tell everyone where you went.
Where did I go?
The Kentucky.
I slept since then. I went to Kentucky. I like to say the Rolex, but it is now the Land Rover. And also spent a little time over at the racetrack in Keeneland and Lexington.
And
yes.
How was it? Did you have a good time?
It was good. It was good.
Where's my funnel cake? You promised me a funnel cake.
It's still in the funnel. I'll bring you a funnel.
Okay. I got one, and we use it for something different. So I guess you didn't buy a horse. They didn't talk you into buying a horse. Were there horses for sale over there?
I'm sure you could have bought a horse there if you'd have had the
right funding.
The right funding. And no, I had meetings with a number of different people, a couple of different footing people. I've met some people that I had some contact before, had some good discussion with them. It's kind of interesting because I can't go anywhere without running into somebody I seem to know. So,
well, I mean, the field that you're in, I mean, how many farriers are in the United States? I'm sure you're going to come across.
There's a lot.
Well, I mean,
but no, we went
to your level. How many farriers at your level are there?
Hopefully, they're a lot better than that. No, but we went to the motel room checking in, and here comes somebody in the door, and I turned around, and I'm like, I know this guy. He says, comes up, we start talking. I say, yeah, we know each other, and off and running.
Who was it?
It was Richard. I can't even say his last name. I'm not even going to talk.
Okay. Richard R.
Richard R. Yes. And he is a farrier, and he's also involved with one of the Pulse unit companies.
So while you were out there, were there like clinics and stuff? Did you poke your nose in and get yourself in trouble anywhere? Because you said you were going to go make fun of the farriers or tell the farriers that were there. You were going to.
Well, I went down and I went to the farrier shop behind the barns, talked to those guys some, and then went down to dressage, and Danvers was down there. I've not seen Danvers in a long time, so we had to catch up and aggravate each other a little bit. He's been working I think he said he'd been working that program for 14 years now.
Jeez.
And so, yeah, that was all good.
So were you able to see like the dressage events and all the other events?
Well, the dressage I did not see. Did watch some of the 5-star cross country.
Okay.
And also that evening they had a good round of stadium jumping. But honestly, most of the time I was there, I was in the vendor area, and I ended up sitting down and having some discussion with some people that I needed to catch up with. And we'll hopefully have a few of them on the show.
That'd be awesome. And so what was your biggest takeaway from, when you go to these things, you always think, all right, I went in there not knowing this, I came out knowing this. Well,
one of my discussions has been footing because, looking at the rule changes with racing, I've been asked to have been having some discussion over that and looking at how what we're learning in the show horse world may transfer over, and we'll see where that goes. But, I did go to the Keeneland racetrack. I did have my hands on the footing there, had another meeting there with a lady who does a lot of filming of racehorses.
And And we'll talk about we'll dive into that a little bit more towards as we get into the show here. We'll dive a little bit more as far as what the footing was and the rule changes and
Right.
whether they're good or bad, these rule changes. All right, guys, stick around. We have a big show to get into, and Mike's got a lot of stuff to talk about. Stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. He'll be right back. What does it take to prepare a horse to compete in a 3-day eventing?
Okay.
Ready?
Yes.
Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein, the official farrier of the 2018 World Equestrian Games. And make sure you follow him on Facebook. You got a bunch of videos. I saw you taking videos while you were out there. Make sure you follow him on Facebook. Also, YouTube. You don't have any new videos on your YouTube channel, but make sure you're following him. And for every podcast we do, we have a matching video that goes on waving to Mike, and Mike is waving to me.
Yeah, I have not done any video in the last bit. That do have a number of them we need to do.
Well, you've been on the road, so
right, but and the work that was going to be done while I was gone is being done before and after.
Yes. And make sure if you have any questions for Mike Stein about anything, go to equinedynamics.com, and at the top of the page says contacts. Fill out the little form there and send your question, and make sure you put your return address, and we'll send you out some free magnets and some stickers and stuff. Now, Mike just got back from Kentucky, the Land Rover Kentucky. What's the whole title of it?
Land Rover. The Land Rover.
The Land Rover.
It's a 3-day event, 5-star. This is a step above what they do for like World Games and the Olympics is a 4-star.
Now, and Mike just got back from this 3-day eventing. And now, what does it take to prepare a horse to compete in a 3-day eventing?
Well, it's a lot. It is a lot. Good trainer, good conditioning, preparing for the dressage arena, preparing for the jumping arena, preparing for cross country, and a lot of physical conditioning, because of that 5-star. That cross country course was 4 miles and 40 plus jumps.
Jesus.
Obstacles through a couple of water obstacles, and that takes a fit horse and a fit rider, and the team has to work together, and you've got to have saddles that fit correctly for that job, because they use a different saddle for the dressage. They may use one for jumping. They may use a different saddle for their cross country.
Now, the opening of our show, it says that some teams have their own saddler and farrier and all that. Does each of these horses have their own team, like a pit crew? Do they have their own vet that they bring out? Do they have their own saddle fitters? Do they have their own farriers? Or is it just kind of a general, this vet can take care of all the horses and this saddle fitter can, whatever? How does that work?
The deal is there are some people that will bring their farriers in with them. There are some people that may bring their vets in with them. They have a team with the horse, and it takes a team. You have, somebody make sure you have a groom that will handle that horse, that probably knows that horse better than any of us some days. The horses that I work on, I'm always in discussion with the trainers, and we've got to make some decisions on when we can do what. Do we need to make changes? We're not going to make it going straight into an event, but when we have some letdown time, if we need to alter a few things, we can there. And when they're backing off the horses need some letdown time. And also, there's a lot of conditioning. The trainers will talk to me about what's going on with the horse, what I need to look at, what they're feeling on a horse, and then we'll check out everything we can and go from there. You need someone who can do a wonderful job of fitting a saddle, because I think you're learning more and more. There's a lot going on there. If that horse cannot move freely, well, it's not going to make that 4.5 miles.
I know we're still dealing with, for those of you who don't know, my wife and I bought a new horse, Diego. He's three years old, gelding, and she had an old saddle that went on another horse, and we're trying to get this saddle flocked for this horse. So yeah, I guess, saddle fitting is a biggie.
And when you're asking for that kind of performance, it has to be really right, for sure. And just as what I do. And when you're pushing a horse to that pace, shoeing them is a little different deal. You've got, horses doing that. It's a challenge for a farrier. And then you're looking at what we have to do because of the modern ground conditions, and shoeing 3-day event horses has changed quite a bit since I want to say 25 years ago, because of the demands are so different. And a lot of that has really changed has been because of the synthetic footings in the arena.
So here's a dumb question, because that's what I do. Sponsorships for these horses? I mean, do they have, like you were talking about Buckeye earlier? Is there sponsor people like, or I would say not sponsor people, but are there companies that like Kellogg's or someone like that or Purina would sponsor these horses, or is that kind of a biased and non-biased type thing, or is that?
Well, you can sponsor one if you like.
Well, I know. I
know you got the money for it.
Well, but I'm sitting on it right now. All this money.
Yeah, I can tell it's hurting you. But no, there are horses that are being sponsored by numerous sponsors, and some of those are products. Some of those maybe, I don't know, because I'm not in that. I know that like Equine.
Okay.
I believe they have sponsored, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but I believe they have sponsored a few horses, and I know the Equine people, Dr. Bob and that crew. Mm-hmm. I do some work for them, and there's, like I say, Travis, if you want to sponsor one of the big names, have at it.
I was just thinking financially, how much are those horses worth? Insurance wise, I mean, you've got to have some kind of backing, because I can't sit there and think that you're going to just dump all this money into, in my opinion, a hobby. I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for that. I'm sorry. I know it's not a hobby. It's a sport. It's a highly intense competition.
Oh, at this level, it is very serious. And, I'm sure that if somebody wants to fly a horse over from England or wherever, Ireland, Germany, bring a horse in from Australia, if you want to pay for the airfare, they'd be just tickled to death to have you do it.
So you would have basically a team of a veterinarian, a farrier, a massage therapist,
chiropractics. There are a number of things that different people will do with their horses. Some believe
aromatherapy.
There's probably some aromatherapy,
for the trainer as well, I would imagine.
For the trainer, yeah. Yeah, I've got a client who has one of those big vibrator deals for horse where you walk them onto it.
We call them massagers.
Massagers, yes. There you go. And the horse stands there, eats hay, and it massages the horse through what they're standing on.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. It's rather nice. I've taken a nap on it. And it's really neat because, standing on one, your legs feel kind of rubbery when they come off, but that's part of their routine. And then, of course, there are vets that deal with this type of horse that specialize in sports medicine, and we need a good sports medicine vet, and we need a vet that is myself we can work together with, and because we need to get information back and forth from each other, because I need to know what's going on. If there's no communication, there's a problem. All of us need to be
on the same page.
On the same page, yes. And there's a lot. There's a lot. And transporting, what you're doing on the other end. If you're flying horses, getting to the airport, having somebody pick it up on the other end, whatever may be done there.
It's unbelievable all the amount of stuff that goes into this. I know it's horses, and you could say that with any sport. You get a baseball team to get them across the country to play another team takes an effort in itself. All right, guys, stick around. When we come back, we'll talk about some basic tools that you would need just for if you have problems shoeing your horses, or not that you're going to shoe, or something comes across. And Mike will dive into that here when we come back. Stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. He'll be right back. I didn't mess you up, did I?
Not one bit.
Okay.
I messed up all by myself.
Yeah, I had this big old list here, and I'm like, okay. I know it takes a lot.
It's like horses. Okay, I had a horse from here that competed in an endurance horse that I know that competed and won at the Tevis, which is high altitude in California. Came from this part of the country at 500 feet. They flew that horse out there a month in advance because of the elevation changes and getting used to the terrain
and the oxygen.
Yeah, exactly, the oxygen level. So the horses need to adjust to the oxygen level before they can compete, because if this, if it's too high, if the horse is starving for oxygen, he's not going to win.
Not going to do very well. Okay, you ready?
Right.
We're going to come back and talk about the basic shoeing tools a horse owner should have, or the basic stuff in general, I guess. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein, the official 2017 American Eventing Championship farrier. And make sure you follow him on Facebook. And the way you do that is search for Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. He's got a whole bunch of videos that he posted when he was out there at the Land Rover out there in Kentucky. 3-day eventing competition. He was out there talking to a bunch of buddies, shook some hands, met some faces, and he's probably, or he's going to get some of the people that he met out there on the show. So that'll be interesting as well. And make sure you follow him on YouTube as well. And if you have any questions for him, go to equinedynamics.com and fill out the little form there, and we'll send you out some magnets, some stickers, and things like that for your questions. All right. Now my wife, we have one horse that has shoes, and the other ones are basically, does Diego have shoes on him?
No, he does not.
No, he does not. And that's our 3-year-old. So Dominique, which is our female, our mare, she's 8 years old, going to be 9 years old. She's got shoes on. And my wife always, when we have a rainy day, she's worried that the fields, because of the suction of the mud and stuff, that it's going to suck a shoe off or half of a shoe. What kind of tools should a horse owner have, and just the basic techniques of how to take care of until a farrier can come by, take care of the shoes?
There needs to be something that you can get a shoe off of a horse safely.
And what do you recommend? Crowbar?
Sure. Let's see how that goes for you. You can pick up some nail pullers at most anywhere. You don't have to have the same tools that I have, because you're not going to be using them all the time. A pair of pull-offs would be good. Old nippers might work. Farriers sometimes have some old tools. My tools, by the time I'm done with them, are usually somebody's already spoke for them, or they've been pretty well destroyed.
Right.
But you can get your farrier to coach you through getting a shoe off safely, and you should.
So if Dominique has a shoe that's falling off, sorta, you don't recommend
sometimes duct tape.
Oh, really?
Well, if you've got one that everything's in place enough and is slightly loose, if you duct tape it to the foot good enough, you may be able to keep it there. When I was doing the little bit of racehorse I did when they traveled, they duct taped up the feet so they wouldn't pull them in the trailer. And
but why wouldn't they put bells on them?
Because they just didn't use bells. Some people don't. But you need enough knowledge and skills to get the shoe off safely and not rip the foot apart, and do minimize damage. If you got something that's going to damage the foot, needs to be gotten off, you need the ability to do it.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I may be somewhere else. And what brought this up was I got a call from, Brett.
Yes, I know Brett.
You know Brett.
He's our trainer.
You give him money every month.
We do.
Yes. Brett likes you. You give him money. He called. I was in Kentucky. He says, "We've got a horse that's leaving at 6 o'clock in the morning. When are you back?" Not 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm in Kentucky. He knew I was there.
Right.
And said the horse was acting silly, whatever, in the wash bay. Benna Shue.
Bent a shoe.
Bent a shoe.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to go to the horse show. He says it wasn't bad, but it was bent. He said, I got the shoe off and I've got it straightened out. Now, to make this make a little more sense, Brett had apprenticed with me because at one point he was thinking about becoming a farrier. And he got nails in the fingers and that sort of thing. So maybe I don't like nails in the fingers. And so he's had some experience. And at one point he had a trimming clientele. So, and he's got a farrier's apron. I gave him one of my old ones, and they've got a few tools over there. Well, they were asking about farriers local to them. And I said, well, maybe you can get one over there. So then the next call was, I'm at the tack store. What kind of nails do I need? And I told him what I had. I said, well, that's close enough. And he was going to put it on, and he was talking about picking up a couple of tools to get the shoe back on, clenched up, and all that. And I don't know that he had clenchers. Was talking about buying a pair of clenchers. So then I talked him through this. This is how you do an old school hammer clench, because used to be with your big pad horses and stuff. You stand them on the concrete and you work the clench around and tap it in with your hammer. And that can be done. I've had horses that I've done that on myself, because you got a horse that's stiff in the back end or whatever, and you're up in the air time is very short. So sometimes you get it where it needs to be and down, and then you can do part of your work on the ground without the leg being flexed up.
So would you recommend, he said he had a bent shoe in the wash rack. Do you recommend after he's flattened that shoe out to put that same shoe back on the horse, or is that going to mess up? I would think in my mind, I picture.
If it's close enough, he can pretty well slide stuff back in the old nail holes.
Well, I mean, but will I picture stuff? You ever put on a pair of shoes with no socks on, and then you pull your feet out of those shoes, and that little foot part that's in the sole of the shoe comes out with you?
Right.
And it never goes back in there correctly?
Right, yeah.
That's the way I picture it, and it makes me walk funny because, the thing has come out, and it's folded up, and I'm trying to shove the thing back into the shoe. And that's why I picture if you take a bent shoe and you try to straighten it out as best what you think is straight, and try to stick it back on the horse, isn't that going to make the horse feel a little funny on that one foot? I would imagine.
I would not ask you to do that. He decided himself to do it.
Okay. And
I wouldn't tell you if you had said, I'm going to put the shoe back on, I would say, no. Just flat out, no. It's your horse. You can do what you want, but no. He's had, like I said, Brett apprenticed with me.
He's got some knowledge as far as what to look for in that shoe.
Right. But he has nailed. It's been a while, but he has nailed horseshoes on before.
So the basic tools that you would physically have to have would cost you about how much money? I mean, I'm talking just maybe twice a year, maybe once a year. You would have to do something with your horse because your farrier wasn't available. About how much are we looking at as far as the actual tools that you need?
I don't know, because I don't buy those tools.
Well, take the price of your tools and cut it in 1/4, I'm sure.
Yeah, you could do that easy enough. And, especially with your thoroughbreds and your thin-soled horses, your creased nail pullers where you can grab into the crease of the nail and you're putting levering against the shoe instead of against the bottom of the foot is a very good idea, because some of those really light-footed horses, you can make them a little sore getting a shoe off because of levering between the pull-offs go between the shoe and the foot. If the nail heads are not where you can get a hold of them, sometimes you have to do that. On a drafty, heavy-footed horse, some of these big warm bloods, it's not so bad. If I can slip nails out individually, I'm going to do less damage to the foot as far as the nail, pulling the nail, and also not levering against the bottom, against the foot itself. If you've got something with really thick, heavy hoof walls, yeah, you can do that. Sometimes if the nail heads are too beat up and ground in, and sometimes they'll rivet into the shoe, sometimes I'm gonna have to go between the shoe and the foot and get a little bit of room. And then if you can knock the shoe back down, sometimes you can get a hold of them. But there are times I'm gonna have to use a pair of regular pull-offs in there.
I got a pair of channel locks. Will that work?
Years ago, I have taken shoes off with channel locks.
Have you really?
I have, and not the best tool for it.
No. All right. Well, I got a pair of channel locks and a hammer, like an old Stanley hammer. Well,
old Stanley hammer.
Am I good? For now?
No, you're good. You're good, Travis. You're good. But, as far as like cutting your clenches off, if you need to knock your clenches up, you can do it with a chisel. You can do it with, you can start a clench with a chisel if you needed to. But I don't. I use the farrier tools. But farriers always have an extra rasp. I cycle my rasp through. I don't use a rasp dull. You don't want a brand new rasp because you're just going to eat yourself up with it. And a rasp stuck somewhere, if you got a farrier coming in your barn, you can get a rasp because, I mean, if I'm looking at scrap prices that are really not worth a lot,
right.
And if you want one, I'll give it to you. But have one stuck in the corner, that way you can knock your clinches off and clean them down with the rasp to where that clinch isn't folded over and locked into the hoof wall, so it pulls back through clean as far as not wanting to tear a hoof wall.
Good. So I'm set. All right, guys, stick around. We got more to get into. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. He'll be right back. Stanley Hammer and some channel locks. I'm good to go.
It's been done.
I'm sure it has. All right. So we are going to upcoming rule changes for shoeing racehorses effective. And we got plenty of time. So we can run this out all the way out, and then we'll do a wrap up the show type deal. Careful drinking water on the air because you'll hear that crinkle on the.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Sometimes we get comfortable and we forget things. You ready?
Yep.
Okay. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein, the best podcast for creating sounder horses from the ground up. Mike Stein is a registered journeyman farrier with an APF1 accreditation. Now, we have Mike just got back from the Land Rover over in Kentucky, 3-day eventing competition. Is it a competition? Do they hand out awards or ribbons or trophies or anything like that, or is it just for posterity?
It is definitely a competition.
Okay. Is there like first place, second place, third place? I mean, do they have like
first place, second place, third place?
And what does the winner get? Like tasty treats for the rest of their life or something? Or is it like
they probably can get a few tasty treats out of it. Yeah, I don't know what the prize would be.
Is it a money purse or is it? Probably. I'm going to say yes. Let's say yes.
Let's say yes.
In our world, Mike, I know you're totally not on that side of the fence or on that side of the arena. Let's say it's $500,000 for first place. Let's say that.
Let's say that.
Well, now don't hold us to us. But if you have any questions for Mike, or if you know the answer to that as well, go over to equinedynamics.com, email Mike, and make sure in the subject line you put podcast so we know exactly who it goes to, because Mike's got a whole bunch of other emails that he's got to sift through. Probably he's going to get a lot of mail from the Land Rover people over there in Kentucky.
Well, if you win enough, you have a lot better chance of sponsorships. That's for sure.
This is true. Now, you said while you were out there, they were asking you about the synthetic surfaces and fixing the shoes and stuff. So there is some rule changes that are coming up. So what I've got here, new shoeing rule changes can be found on the HISA Racetrack Safety Program. Focus specifically on traction devices that farriers are permitted to apply, except for the full rims 2 millimeter or less from the ground surface of the horseshoe. Traction devices are prohibited on the forelimb and the hind limb horseshoes during racing and training on dirt or synthetic tracks. Traction devices are prohibited on the forelimb and the hind limb horseshoes during training and racing on the turf. Now, tell me exactly what they're trying to do and what they're trying to prevent with this new rule change.
Well, I think what they're working on, one thing is a standard across the country, because the Jockey Club states kind of everybody had their own individual rules, and it would be different from state to state. Part of what they're trying to do is minimize injuries on the horse. And this is kind of what sent me out there, because track surfaces, I know in the sport horse world, I've done some racehorse shoeing, not enough to say that I'm not a world-class racehorse shoer by any means, not going to pretend to be. And with the sport horses, we've had to adjust because of surfaces, especially with the eventers, well, with all of them, with our dressage horses, with our jumping horses, where we're going onto the synthetic surfaces over how we used to do when the arenas were all primarily sand.
Now, in 2014, the Federal Equestrian International produced a paper saying that surfaces must be firm enough to support the horses while soft enough to dampen the load. It must be responsive to return the energy to the horse effortlessly, which is very hard for me to say, providing enough purchase for the propulsion and enough slide for the landing.
There you go. That is exactly what you need. And that kind of goes racetrack, dressage arena, jumping arena. And the demands between a jumping arena and a dressage arena would be a little different as far as how firm it is and how deep they are into the ground.
Now, when you say synthetic surfaces, what I'm thinking, crushed up tires. You know how sometimes you'll see like your car tires, they'll grind them up and use that not for horses, but like in playgrounds or surfaces or something like that. Is it that kind of material, or what is the actual synthetic material made of?
Well, we used to see some ground up tires, but they've kind of gotten away from that. There are a few arenas around that do have the ground up tires in there. I know where a couple of them are. Now, part of the problem you ran into with the tires, if you're on full sun and it was a hot day,
They melt.
they got hot, and you got feet hot, and getting horses' feet too hot is not good. So they kind of got away from that, and we've got everything from felt to some of it look like scrap carpet padding to anything else. There's synthetic fibers.
What's the one clay surface that I forget the arena that we go to. It almost has like these long fibers mixed in with the clay. It almost looks like fiberglass or hair or something like that. What is that material?
It may be a polyester. I don't know, because there are a number of companies out there that use different materials. There's some that have waxes in them. Everybody's got a different mix, and they've got their own reason for it. But some of them are a sand with wax in it. And then if you go to different parts of the country, where's your sand coming from? Because you can have the same synthetics here, and you may be hauling sand out of a local sand pit, or different parts of the country. The grit and the sand is going to be a little different, and it's going to react a little different with the same material added into it.
So are you saying that the rule changes that they're happening in July 1st, is that a good thing? Because you're trying to make it across the board, but it sounds like across the board doesn't work on all the different surfaces. So it's like, you know, when you play tennis, you play either on turf, or you play on clay, or you play on some kind of astro or synthetic surface. So you would need different shoes just for that as well.
Yeah, I don't know how this is going to work out. I think the people that I shoot racehorses for were anti-grab, so we used flat plates, that's where it's going to put most people. I don't know what they're going to allow as far as can you rocker them, do a roll, or whatever else. If we're limited on that kind of changes the surface, because the firmer the surface is, the more you're going to need mechanics built into the shoe to help alleviate pressure for them to go across the top of it. If they sit into the surface deeper, you're going to get a certain amount of perch where the foot will rotate into the ground, and your roll point will be at that point where the foot rolls into the ground.
So the HISA defines traction devices that included but are not limited to rims, toe grabs, bends, jar caulks, and stickers. The rule does not reference toe wear plates or nail height. However, the language does define of traction devices that leaves it open to interpretation.
Well, let's see who's interpreting it.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like they're trying to make the rule, but they're like going, all right, here's the rule. What does it mean? You guys figure it out. I don't know.
Well, it's like when you went to a muddy track at certain times, you could change your nails and add some traction if you needed to, because they have
almost like cleats.
A little bit, yes. And I don't know where that's going to leave us with that, because I know those 17 AECs, I worked that event, and cross country was clay, and it rained. It poured down rain. The upper level guys, who are primarily where I'm working as far as my clientele, they were set to go. Lower level riders that come in, they were not ready. So I ended up with horses lined up. We're pulling shoes off, studding drilling and tapping so people could use studs. And they were stacked 7 and 8 deep. There were a few farriers that I had called on. There were a couple on the grounds that stepped in. At one time, we had 3 of us under horses, one farrier over drilling shoes, his son-in-law, who was not a farrier, tapping shoes for us and handing shoes back to us. And we couldn't get them all done. There were 800 horses on the grounds, and I never came up for air all the way through that deal. There were some, there was one evening I was going to meet some people to watch show jumping. I got up there for the last horse to go through. There's where have you been? And I've been under horses.
Did you show them your bloody knuckles and stuff? And this is where I've been. You know
exactly. But you take your surfaces. If it pours down rain, they can pack and roll the surfaces, make it better. The track's still going to be wet under there. I don't know where that's going to leave us. They're going to have to figure out, are they going to standardize the track surfaces? I know at Keeneland we looked at that, and it sounds like they have gone back to a natural surface. There are other tracks that are going to be a synthetic, and it's going to be a different ball game on that synthetic. It's going to be a different ball game with a level of moisture in the ground. The natural tracks are going to allow more glide. When they come in, the horse comes into the ground, it's got enough forward momentum, that foot's sliding forward until the foot sets into the ground, and he starts into your breakover phase, and he pushes into the ground, and the cup of the foot will grab into the ground, and he pushes. The grab would lock into the ground and give him more push. The other end with the grab is they come in as that slide forward. As soon as that grab sets into the ground, you've got a big set of brakes that goes on, and it snaps the whole bone column around. And that is, in the sport horse world, with his natural surfaces, we've tried to figure out all kinds of ways to get that foot to slide as it comes in. That's been one of our biggest challenges. And depending on the surface, like your reining horse, they put a big wide plate on it to slide. If on some of the synthetic surfaces, that won't slide. That stops. Aluminum, which in the hunter world used aluminum, when it comes in, aluminum is more porous and it grips against the ground more than a steel shoe would. Most of the farriers prefer steel shoes. The other thing is, if you've got aluminum with a wear bar in it, some of those shoes will have an insert in the toe to keep the shoe from wearing. You're going to have that on the racing plate too. The mileage you put on that shoe wears around the wear bar. And at what point is that wear bar becoming an attraction device and becoming too much?
So it's up to the interpretation of the rule, I guess. I mean, I don't see them going, why would they make all the fields the same, all the arenas the same, all the tracks the same, and all the shoes the same? Because then now what are you doing? You're doing this, you're not making a challenge. It's no different than, let's say, NASCAR racing. You know, every track is different. That's where the sport of the game comes in. How are you going to make your vehicle, in this case, the vehicle being your horse, adapt to these changes? That's your rider's responsibility, the talent of the rider, the talent of the horses, and the talent of your farrier and all the other pit crew, quote unquote, pit crew, to make this horse work its best possibility on these different levels of tracks or fields or whatever.
Yeah, you would like for them to be the same, wouldn't you?
Well, I mean, that if you're trying to make all the shoes the same and you're going to make all the, let's say they make all the fields the same, then there's absolutely no challenge to the horse and rider.
How are you going to control humidity level?
Well, I mean, outside of nature and stuff like that. But I mean, if everyone had the same track and the same shoes and the same this and no traction bars and all that, everyone was equal. Everyone gets a participation trophy. I mean, it doesn't make. So it's up to the interpretation.
Well, maybe they're just going to start giving everybody a participation trophy because you were there.
Right.
Then everything's good. We all won. But it's going to be a different surface. It will never be the same surface. You look at...
So you can't make one rule that blankets a broad brush and covering all the surfaces because...
Oh, you can make the rule. You can make the rule for sure. But you go to Florida, to here,
to Colorado,
to California, to Arizona. We get rain here. Arizona has it in spells.
And you get your height. You were talking about oxygen earlier.
Right. Well, that's one thing that's going to affect some horses when they go to a different showground is are they adjusted to that altitude? And sometimes you have to take horses in early to give them a chance to adjust to the altitude, because if you're from our part of the world at a few hundred feet above sea level, where our air is thick enough that we can breathe it. And I know I shoot horses in Colorado at 6,500 feet, and I was sucking air pretty hard. And it was like, whoa, this is not good. It took me a few days to adjust. That's going to make a difference in the performance of the horse.
Right.
So you can't set altitudes. You can't control the environment. The exact same footing in an arid desert area, high desert or low desert or whatever kind of desert, is going to be different than the footing in an area where we live in the rainforest part of the year.
All right, guys, stick around. We got one more segment, and then we'll let you get back to enjoying the rest of your day. Stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. He'll be right back.
Sorry, I tried to do better on the water bottle. I messed up on that again.
It's okay. When you do that, I stop talking, so I'll let you finish, and that way I can cut that out.
I was just trying to set it off the side where sometimes I do stuff like that just out of fidgeting.
I know.
I'm sorry. I forgot to bring your romance novels.
Yeah. We'll be okay. We'll get through it. Are you ready? Last segment.
Yep.
Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. Make sure you follow him on Facebook, and the way you do that is go to Facebook, search Equine Dynamics and Mike Stein. You can see him over there. And don't forget, for every podcast we have a matching video, me waving to Mike, Mike waving to me. Hi, Mike. And Mike just got back from the Land Rover over in Kentucky. It's a 3-day eventing challenge. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get this right. It's a 3-day eventing competition. There it is. And Mike, you just got back from it, and how did you do? Did you meet a lot of people?
Met a lot of people.
Familiar faces?
Familiar faces. Found some people that knew me through other avenues I've never met in person.
Uh-oh. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Hopefully it's a good thing.
They didn't see your picture up in the post office, did they?
No, they have not been going in that post office. That's a different one.
All right, Mike, what did we learn today? What does it take to prepare a horse to compete in a 3-day eventing competition?
It takes a team, and it takes a lot of conditioning, and it takes a lot of dedication.
And a lot of money, from our understanding.
A lot of money and time and energy.
So anywhere from a professional veterinarian, a farrier, a massage therapist, chiropractor, aromatherapy, fitness of the horse and rider, dedication, financial backing, sponsorships, good equipment for the horse and the rider. It just takes a lot. I mean, you just can't just jump on your horse and go.
No, and for a farrier, dealing with those horses is definitely a challenge.
And what are some of the basic shoeing tools that a horse owner should have laying around, like my Stanley hammer and my channel locks?
Well, you can work with a Stanley hammer and channel locks, and you can bust your knuckles or whatever else.
You said a good thing is to get a rasp.
Yes, farriers will always have a rasp. You don't have to buy one. Enough tools to get a shoe off safely at minimum should be in the barn. If you've got unshod horses, maybe you need an old rasp to just dress up something on the edge. Also, you need to go to your farrier and ask them to teach you how to get a shoe off safely, because not done safely, you can do a fair amount of damage to a foot.
Or just while you're there, hey, walk me through the steps of what you're doing.
Exactly. Because your farrier will be glad to do that, so you won't damage the foot, and then he has to figure out how to deal with what has been done.
Was it an ounce of preventative?
An ounce of preventative is worth a pound of cure.
Yes. And the upcoming rule change for shoeing racehorses effective July 1st, 2022. How do you feel about the rule change, and what do you think? Do you think it, quote unquote, pardon the pun, stick?
It will stick, I believe. I think that it will probably stick. It may not. There's going to be adjustments. There's going to be a lot of adjustments. Hopefully, the deal is like with FEI rules. They're trying to make it safer for the horses, make it safer for everybody all the way through. We don't want horses injured. We want safe track surfaces. We want safe practices from what we do, and dealing with the abrasion, dealing with the impact, dealing with the needs of the horse to go at that speed. and hopefully this horse will be better off down the road to become our sport horses, to go out on the event courses and be good, productive citizens.
All right, guys, we're going to let you guys get back to enjoying the rest of your day. Make sure you follow Mike Stein over on Facebook, Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. Also, make sure you follow him on YouTube as well. Search for Equine Dynamics on YouTube. And also, if you have any questions for Mike, go to equinedynamics.com. At the top of the page, it says contacts. Fill out the little form there. Ask your question. Make sure you put podcast in the subject line so Mike can decipher between all his other email addresses. And make sure you put your return address in there as well, and we'll send you out some stickers and some magnets as well so you can tell all your friends about it. All right, guys, on that note, we'll let you get back to enjoying your day. On behalf of Mike Stein over there,
have a good day.
My name is Travis Holmes. See you next week.
All of the doggies are in the
oh, my voice kind of wept out.
all of your work
Well, we made it through.
Just close your eyes.
Sorry about the end.
And dream.
I tried to maintain my composure.
Yeah, it's better just sitting there choking.
I know. Because I know people listen to it going, clear your voice, clear your throat.
Because if I have to do CPR on you, you may have a problem.
Good night, Ned.
I'll wake up with new shoes.